Behold, fellow adventurers, I, Mirandus Moses, bestow upon you the Mirandus 10 Commandments. I have ascended to the mountaintop and eavesdropped upon the wisdom of the creative minds of Michael McCarthy and his team. Assuredly, these commandments shall serve as your guiding principles, indeed, the very bedrock that forms the essence and vision of Mirandus. Countless intrepid adventurers have met their untimely demise due to their lack of understanding and adherence to these very commandments. Hence, before you partake in the acquisition of your first NFT or join the community to theorize, proffer feedback, critiques, and queries, ensure you are well acquainted with the profound insights enshrined within the Mirandus 10 Commandments. Commandment number 1. Thou shalt make MMOs great again. The first commandment is all about bringing back the glory days of MMOs. Mirandus isn't your typical MMO RPG in the market today. Creative director and master of Mirandus, Michael McCarthy, wants to recapture the spirit of classic games where less grinding and more thrilling adventures await you. It's all about that edge of your seat feeling where every move counts and the stakes are high.
So what I want is I want to recapture, if possible, the spirit and the feeling that I had in the early days of RPG and MMO playing, and especially tabletop Dungeons and Dragons, where you're just on edge when you play. It was exciting because your life was at stake. And if you were playing with the right, with a hardcore, dungeon master, and you found the entrance to a dungeon, you didn't even walk up and throw the door open. You were scared. You were talking about who's going to approach it, who's got the best skills. Okay, let's open it up. Let's start to walk in. Okay, everyone slow down. Every room was filled with danger. You never knew what you were going to expect. And that's really important to me. And if you died in Dungeons and Dragons and the dungeon master reach over and, some of them I knew, they just rip your page in half and kick you out of the room. You're dead. That's it. With that kind of spirit and risk on the line when you're going out into the world, you're just excited the whole time. You don't know what's going to happen next. Every decision matters. And I want it to feel more that way. So we're going to do that in a few different areas, but having the world be kind of a living simulation, I think, is automatically going to heal a lot of what makes other MMOs boring. You won't know where monsters are, and you won't know where creatures are in the forest, because we won't know. In these other games, in typical software development, you pick a point over here in this world, and you say, okay, this is where we're going to spawn this guy and these 3 other support guys. They're going to be standing around a fire. If you kill them, they're going to respawn again in 5 minutes. That means everyone knows everything that's going to happen all the time. That means dungeons, you know exactly what's going to happen. Yeah, up here in the room on the left, there's 3 guys. Over there in the room on the left, there's 2. Avoid the room on the right. That sucks. The treasure chest sucks. You just know everything already ahead of time.
Commandment number 2. Thy death shall have significant penalties. While Mirandus won't have permadeath, it's important to remember that it will have significant penalties when you meet your demise. So be cautious and strategize your battles wisely. Mirandus isn't a walk in the park, but the rewards and sense of accomplishment will be worth it.
There will need to be significant penalties for dying. And I haven't settled on exactly what those are yet, but if there aren't significant penalties, you won't care about running out into a dark forest. And when you see a hero who's high level and has really great gear, it's nothing to be respected. It needs to be seeing a high level player and someone living and surviving and leveling up to become a true great hero in the land of Mirandus needs to be a big deal. And needs to be something that everyone respects. So I'd say the game will get as hardcore as you want it, depending on how hard and deep you want to start probing into dungeons and what high-level monsters do you want to try to go for. And the more risk you put yourself in, the greater the reward.
Commandment number 3. Remember, it's a fantasy simulator based in reality. Mirandus can be as hardcore as you want it to be. The developers aim to create a game that feels authentic. So, if you ever find yourself questioning how a certain mechanic works, ask yourself, how would it work in the real world? Although not every detail will be simulated, this exercise will give you an idea of how the team might approach various aspects of the game.
Kind of playing on this, this concept of what would it be like to really simulate a fantasy world. I like the idea that families could play this game together too. There'd be members of your family that all they want to do is adventure and try to go into, a dungeon and get some loot or kill a creature they've heard of and, deep in this dark forest. But I like the idea too that, there could be other family members being merchants, farmers and crafting things that are useful for, for their team or guild or family to help them with their adventure or to grow their wealth. So I think, again, is Mirandus hardcore? Don't think about the rules that we are going to employ to make it hardcore or not. Think about it more like if we all lived in a D&D fantasy world, it would not be super dangerous to be in a town or a village. It'd be pretty safe. It would be very dangerous to go out into the forest at night. Again, we're trying to simulate a fantasy world. If you woke up tomorrow and you were in a fantasy world, what would you be able to do? And that's really what we're going to try to do. And if you owned something in that world when you woke up in the morning, could you lend it to a friend, or could somebody rent it from you, or could you gift it to somebody? Or, we're trying to do that. We're trying to do that.
Commandment number 4, thou shalt have free markets to do as you please. In Mirandus, you have the freedom to do as you please in the realm of commerce. Want to own multiple lands and become a real estate mogul? Go for it. The game offers a player-driven economy without training wheels where you can even strive to create your own in-game monopoly. Mirandus embraces the idea of free markets, giving players the opportunity to shape their own destinies.
You are not going to own a house if you don't own a house. You wouldn't be able to build a house if you don't own a house. I mean, we have to do that just to keep the buildings and the deeds truly special. If we were selling these buildings and deeds and that was a big part of our game and there was scarcity associated with that, but anyone could jump in the game and get some stones and some sticks together and build a house, we just wouldn't have that. So if you want to own a house, you got to get a house. But you can jump into the game and you can adventure and you can be shopping in town at other players' shops and you can upgrade your character and you can do all of those things. It's likely you'd belong to a guild at some point, or a group of players. And any player that owns a house or a deed is, I like the idea that they can have keys. That's how they get in and out, and they can give those keys to other people and let them share in what is inside that home, chests and beds and, whatever else they have in there.
Would a new player with no NFTs be able to earn enough rewards to become a landowner? My view is that in any MMORPG, there's a certain amount of grinding that ends up having to happen for like crafting recipes or whatever. It's been something that I've envisioned for many years now, that somebody in one part of the world might create something that somebody in another part of the world finds really valuable and then sell it to them. So I can very much imagine someone becoming a new player, doing some tasks that maybe this other player who's been playing for a while doesn't want to do, and then doing that enough times that they have earned enough to become a landowner because they've made some really smart trades. We see this in the Discord all the time. You just got to go to the marketplace. I know there are people making thousands of dollars a month on our NFTs and trading and selling them. In fact, I believe this is the case until this last week, that many weeks our players make more money than we do as a company. And I want to see that continue in all of our games.
What I think is cool is to think about the world and to think about entering it and seeing, where the gaps are. I loved the auction house in World of Warcraft for a while. You know, I just did nothing but harvest and buy and sell, um, you know, buy low and sell high packs of silk and stuff, try to corner the market and get an unbelievable amount of gold from very wealthy elder players that are just looking to level up their crafting skill. That was fun. You know, that was cool. So I want the game to have those vectors. I want there to be a lot of different types of players in it trying to do something in the world. There'll be a lot of adventurers and um, but yeah, a lot of merchants and farmers and just people. There's this risk in Mirandus because the number of buildings and deeds are finite that, you know, let's say there's 300 total potion shops in the world, and somebody swoops in and buys 290 of them that maybe actually would be integrated, and 290 would just live and on chain with some guy that is just sitting on them. I'm okay with that. I think that sucks, and I think I'd hope we'd have more potion shops in the world, but boy, is that going to make potion shops super special for the 2 or 3 or 4 that make it in there. I mean, a city that has a potion shop or two will become hailed for miles around. Everyone will want to visit there, and that'll become the epicenter for potions. Um, you know, you guys are a part of this living simulation that we're trying to build, and we don't know what you're going to do. Just like we're hoping to not know exactly what, you know, the creatures in the world are going to do. So, you know, it's just a part of building this together with you guys, and a risk that the blockchain kind of brings in. But I think anytime that you're trying to control something or wrap your fingers around it too tightly, you're just kind of playing the wrong game and thinking the wrong way. It's more about what would the options look like in a world where someone's sitting on most of them and there are only 2 or 3 out there. I'm more interested in seeing what you guys would do and how the world would shape up in that scenario, than I am trying to throttle, you know, we're not interested in throttling your behavior. We're interested in letting this catch fire and see how the world sorts out.
Commandment number 5. Thou shalt #MakeMirandusHard. Prepare for the real challenge in Mirandus. The developers want to put the hard back in hardcore. From formidable bosses that will put your skills to the test, to encounters with fierce wolves lurking nearby, the action will keep you on the edge of your seat. Are you ready to face the ultimate challenges Mirandus has in store?
I don't think a boss monster would let you just walk around and slaughter people and clear a dungeon and sit on a chair. Like that just, I mean, that just doesn't make any sense to me. That also doesn't feel like a boss. So I don't know. I mean, we say boss. Would it take a server-wide effort to kill one? I mean, it's going to take a monstrous effort. Would it need to be server-wide? I'm not sure. But part of it is just going to be learning about how to kill it to begin with, I think. It's not just a matter of grinding its points down with everyone having a, you know, pretty good DPS. You know, there's going to be more to it than that. It might be, you know, there might be bosses, you know, that are intrinsically magical, and there might only be times of the year where they're even vulnerable. Something like that, you know. That's a cool, like, you know, having a world where you have to figure out what something's weak points are and share it with everyone, and no one really knows, and everyone's trying to figure out the puzzle of how to take down something that monolithic. That's a boss. That's a big boss. So I want it to be special. I want it to be amazing and interesting. And I want it that if a boss is killed, everyone remembers it, probably Mirandus wide. That's what we're trying to do. We're not trying to make something up. If someone told you there were wolves in the forest, I had some friends that were relating to me some hunting stories, and they were saying that they were out hunting elk, and they'd been in their hutch all day, and the wolves were starting to howl. They could see them on the ridge, and they were getting closer and closer and closer to them, and they didn't want to scare off any potential, you know, ruin the hunt, but the wolves had gotten so close that they had to fire a warning shot at the wolves to get them to go away. And when you are out in the middle of nowhere hunting and there are wolves nearby, it's not it's not fun. It's really damn scary. Um, and I think we're trying to capture some of that feeling. We're not, again, not trying to make kind of a thinly veiled kill a wolf mechanic. It's like killing a wolf is difficult. Wolves nearby is scary, and we're trying to just bring some of that reality into Mirandus.
Commandment number 6. There shall be no prescribed arbitrary music. Say goodbye to weird music playing in the woods for no reason. Mirandus encourages real music that comes from the players themselves. In this vast fantasy world, if you hear music, it will be created by your fellow adventurers. It's a dynamic and immersive experience that adds a personal touch to your journey.
I feel very strongly against having music in games in general, Mirandus especially so. What I mean by that is that I am not going to design and prescribe to you guys some arbitrary soundtrack to the world that, of course, after playing a game for a few hours, you're going to mute because you're sick of hearing that song over and over again, or a rat starts to attack you and it sounds like you're going into battle with a dragon with some massive orchestral. I don't like that. I don't experience things that way. I don't want that crap in Mirandus. Meaning I don't want to prescribe to you what the soundtrack is. I want you to be in this world. I want you to be living in this world. I want music in this world, but I want it to come from people who are crafting music in this world. I want their compositions to be NFTs. I want people to get mastery in a music skill or ability of some kind, be able to play together across multiple instruments, create masterwork instruments. I want, if you have the experience in Mirandus of hearing music, it is coming from players. It is something players composed. And I want players who are excellent at music and who are composing things within the game to be widely hailed throughout the land. I want it to be an awesome experience for you. I want you to be outside the walls of a city, hear something amazing happening, and be able to walk into the city and try to get as close to that musician as possible. When you go into a forest, I'm not going to be playing music at you. You'll just be in a forest.
Commandment number 7. There shall be class mastery with the freedom to switch. In Mirandus, you have the opportunity to master various classes without being locked into one forever. The game allows you to explore different class playstyles and adapt to the challenges you face. Find your favorite class, perfect your skills, and embrace the freedom to switch if you change your mind.
I like classes in that you can dedicate yourself to something, and that there might be a path to greatness, or someone who has achieved greatness in that class, and they can help you or mentor you become awesome. I think there's something interesting and genuine about it's an easy way to connect socially inside an MMO too. Like what are your particular skills or abilities that you bring to the table? And I think a class is a really easy way to communicate that to people. I don't know if we would be a completely classless system, which I think, if we take a look at like Ultima Online, where there's kind of no such thing as a class. You just do things, and the more you do them, you get better at them. And then there's kind of this like logarithmic curve that makes it practically impossible to hit the perfection or the expert mark of something. Like 0 through 100% proficiency. I think when it's completely classless, you miss something. I think there's something fun about jumping into a game and announcing what your fantasy is when you're inside of that particular world. So I don't know exactly how I would want the class system to work, because it makes me think about, well, what if I dedicate myself to a class? How do I back out of that? Am I switching classes? Do I, it causes my mind to spin quite a bit. But what I will say is that I think that's a really fun aspect of an RPG. That is the first most exciting thing I think that most players think about when they're going to come into a world is, who do I want to be? What do I want to be an expert as? What do I want to be thought of in the world if I really take this all the way to the nth? And I like the idea of defining that or having at least a journey that you can look at clearly in front of you to achieve expertise along a certain vector. So I definitely, I'll tell you this, I mean, if let's say you're like, oh, I want to be an archer or a ranger or something. I mean, I people need to exist in this world and be able to switch and try new things. So I, you know, I would never want anyone to be making a choice up front that predetermines their destiny inside of Miranda. It's like, oh, this sucks. I wish I wouldn't have chose a sorcerer. I wish I would. Oh my God. Now I wish I was a, it can't be that kind of game, because I don't want people to have many different characters as much as, like, I'm hoping you come into the game and you grow bigger and greater and stronger across any vector that you would want. So, I like the idea of classes, but the player definitely needs to be able to switch or mix and match those particular skill sets and abilities in interesting ways.
Commandment number 8. There shall be a player-driven economy with player-crafted NFTs. Mirandus takes the concept of a player-driven economy to the next level. Not only will players have control over the market, but they can also create and trade player-created NFTs, non-fungible tokens. The game focus on preserving a healthy player economy ensures a thriving and immersive experience for all.
It ties into the question of how you're going to play to earn in a game like this.
Yeah.
Because, if you're that guy who's chopping down trees around Mirandus and turning that into something with a gala chain, the way we're designing it, those pieces of lumber are going to be on chain.
I think the intention is that the entire game, to the best of our ability, is on chain. There'll be this economy inside the game, and there'll be this economy that's happening out there in the secondary market that we just can't control because it's not ours. We're a decentralized network. So it'll be fascinating to see what people do with it. But I think practices that are discouraged in other games are practices that we would encourage here. I want people in the game being industrious and getting entire guilds together to try to build something which has an extremely high value. I think that's fun and exciting.
The reason we started with the concept of deeds and buildings is because I feel very confident that that's a box from, design wise that we can commit to. So will there be other NFTs in the future that get released? I think there might be some additional buildings coming in the future, but I really want to get clearer on the design and how exactly those new buildings would interface with the character system itself. There's a lot of other things like accessories, paintings on the wall, things you would dress up your building with, or maybe the land that you own from a deed perspective. But I'm kind of hoping that those are a part of the, players crafting and creating them inside the world of Mirandus, and I wouldn't want to hurt that game by releasing a bunch of stuff prior to it coming out. So I kind of feel like the deeds and the buildings are these wonderful, shells and platforms that players can experiment with and grow inside of Mirandus. I wouldn't want to release NFTs that hamper that in any way. I'd want to release things that make the world more interesting. So,
Commandment number 9. Exemplars shall not place thy tent in the wild. Mirandus forbids players from placing their tents in the wild. It's all about preserving the deed mechanics, immersive world, and perhaps even avoiding clutter in the wilderness. So, find a suitable place to rest your head inside a deed. Even the smallest homestead can provide sanctuary within the boundaries of this fantastic realm.
Is it possible to place tents in the wild? Or do they have to be placed inside of a deed?
I mean, I want the world to consist of deeds and buildings. I want the homestead to be your way to establish a foothold somewhere and have that safe place that you can return to at night. It's not, I live in Oregon, guys. It's beautiful out here, and I can chuck a tent out here in my lawn and camp if I wanted to. Camping means you're just sleeping in a on a on a bag or a burlap sack somewhere out in the forest, and then you're gonna sleep there and log off. And like I think in the world of Mirandus, you'd be eaten. The forests are going to be dangerous. There's going to be creatures out there, especially at night. You know, they might hide a lot during the day, but you know, when night falls, you know, the freaks come out at night. They're going to get you. So to me, it's like a homestead is really how you can establish a remote base or an outpost. You know, those are good deeds to establish kind of way out there. But just the concept that it's like, what a beautiful night, what a wonderful starry sky out there. Why don't I pitch a tent and I'm going to go to sleep? And you know, I think the world is just a little too dangerous for that when you start getting outside of the towns, and it's a little hard to buy that. It's a little hard to buy that particular fiction for me. So you know, it kind of undermines the deed and building mechanic, I feel like, a little bit, and then it's a little strange to, again, you know, there's goblins and evil stuff out there that wants to eat you. So just pitching a tent in the middle of the forest, the dark forest of Mirandus, means you should die. You should get eaten. Your throat should get torn out in the middle of the night as you sleep. And I want people to adventure and return with their loot, make it back to their safe base. I want you to be thinking about, you know, again, if you were going to go into a dungeon, or you were going to you know, anything that the settlers have done for thousands of years all over the world, right? You're venturing out with your gear, your equipment, things that you need to be successful.
Why do tents exist?
To place on the smaller plots near homesteads and near you know, on those smaller deeds.
So do you imagine a situation in which, let's say you own a homestead, or you own an outpost or something like that? Could you set your outpost up somewhere remotely and then have, you know, a camp that people can rent spots in to sleep?
That's the whole point of it.
Commandment number 10. There shall be no open world PvP. Lastly, while faction warfare, indoor arenas with intense battles may be part of Mirandus in the future, open world PvP ganking is a no-go. The developers want to create a fair and balanced environment, allowing everyone to enjoy the game without the fear of relentless ganking. But that doesn't mean no need to watch your back at every turn.
Will player factions or guilds be able to go to war?
Yeah. I mean, I think that's just such a fun part. You know, that so Mirandus is not PvP. We're not making it that you can just walk in the game and then, oh, I'm dead. Somebody decided to kill me. I think that's just a little too much. But I do think that if you align with a faction and those two factions agree that they want to be at war, that, you know, I mean, I think those two factions should be allowed to kill each other on sight. Well, I mean, the coolest idea. We don't want you walking around the world in a nonstop PvP environment. The world is already incredibly dangerous. And if it was 100% PvP, that I think would ruin the experience. It'd be that Ultima Online lightning bolt in the face for every noob situation. And I really want you to be aligned around pushing out into the world and working together. What we like the idea for PvP is arenas. That's what we like. And to be more specific, arenas like people can, like the forum, come in, take a seat, watch it happening. And what we can do is, because we're blockchain, I'm super hot on the idea of making it matter. Not just a duel, but we could make it matter. I do really like the idea that, you know, you could own an arena. Players could pay you to come to the arena and watch a match between two exemplars. And whoever loses, we burn that NFT. They're gone, dead forever. That exemplar is now removed from the system. Just burn that NFT, like sign a contract.
like a true life or death match. That would be insane. Yeah, pay-per-view, exactly. And that might be a little too far, but not in my book.
So it is written, the Mirandus 10 Commandments. May the precision of your blade forever find its mark, and may your endeavors always yield untold riches and everlasting renown. Mirandus Moses.